So the title says, "Is the stock market crash happening?" It's not happening. It's just a correction, as we talked about. But in the event that it does, I have a couple of stocks that you may want to consider buying if a stock market crash occurs. And we just got done talking about Apple. That would be the first one that I go to. I mean, every time we've seen a stock market crash, Apple comes back with a vengeance. Last year, it came back 80%. I'm sorry, ended 80% up on the year after a substantial stock market crash. At one point, Apple was down 40% and then came back 80%. It was just crazy. So Apple would be the first one in the event of a stock market crash. And I'm going to assume that the reason it would crash is because of what everybody's talking about is the inflation scare. So let's just go with that narrative. So in an inflation scare, I think that Apple would be a huge opportunity to buy up on the dip, especially with everything that they have going on. Even though there's inflation happening, demand for Apple products, hardware, what have you, people are still spending that money like crazy. So I think that Apple is still going to be king. I think it's definitely one that it's nice and safe to buy. Looking at equities in general, there isn't a whole lot of them out there that I would really just hop on if the stock market was crashing, but Apple would be numero uno. You look at the chart here, obviously it has just gone absolutely insane, but if I were to see another crash happen, I could see Apple coming back down to retest maybe, let's just call it $100 a share. So I'll say $100 a share. So that is about, that would constitute a crash. Yeah, about 35%. So if that ends up happening, I think that I would be selling everything I have to buy Apple at that point. So that would be the first one, Fat Man Zoom. What are your thoughts on that one?
I love it. Apple is still king, and I know everybody wants the meme stock, but God, they've been around forever, but they continue to evolve and increase, and just show why they're best in class as far as business is concerned.
Yeah, I agree. My second one is going to be CrowdStrike, which might catch people by surprise, but CrowdStrike in a crash, I think, would be huge, especially if inflation occurs. Businesses are still going to need to function, and I think that they are at most risk during a stock market crash, especially as it relates to inflation. So if there's anything that you're going to put money towards as a small business or even as a corporation, it's going to be towards your cybersecurity. You're not going to sacrifice that expense for your business. So CrowdStrike, I think, is definitely one that you could end up buying up on any kind of significant drop-off or a crash, and I would consider owning it now, even as it stands. So looking at the chart here as well, I think that CrowdStrike could be a really good buy if by some chance it crashes back down to the 150 mark. Now I'm talking, this is legit crash, guys. Right now it's sitting at 261. So if we see a crash, that's the kind of wild drop off I could see happening. But I, again, would be selling my shirt to go buy some CrowdStrike because I don't think that this is something, and that goes for any cybersecurity, but in my opinion, CrowdStrike's best in class, and that's what I'm going to do in the event that a major crash would take place. What say you, Fat Man Zoom, on that one?
I love it. I love it, and I think cybersecurity should be in any long-term portfolio, in any portfolio, really. Cybersecurity is a good opportunity. Now, keep this in mind, though. You alluded to it. You're going to see a lot more volatility.
Yeah.
From CrowdStrike than you would from Apple. So let's say Apple crashes 35%. During that same period, you probably would see CrowdStrike fall
50.
Yeah, that would be like normal to do. So it would be scarier, but you have the potential to make more potentially. So remember volatility when you're thinking about this, and look at, and actually their betas are surprisingly similar. Apple's is like 1.2 and Crowd's is 1.23. So it's surprisingly similar, but I think you'll still see more volatility just because it's tech and a younger company and not as profitable as Apple.
Yep, I agree. I like it. So my last one of the three stocks that I would buy in the event of a stock market crash, this might come as another surprise to some people, but it would be ExxonMobil.
Mini Zoom favorite.
I think when you look at a crash, especially if it happens as a result of an inflation scare, what happened in the 70s? I mean, oil went through the roof. So if there's any stock that I'm going to go after, it's going to be something that's energy related. You really could go after anything that's energy related, but again, we're looking at best in class. We're looking at, I would consider a Chevron in that category as well, but I went with Exxon here. We even look at the chart, and this time last year, we were looking at negative numbers as far as oil is concerned, and people just started buying the hell out of it. If you did that, you would have doubled your money from there till now. Actually, more than that. And you look at the chart here, and the proof is in the pudding here. So when the crash initially happened last year in 2020, went from $30 a share all the way up to around $54.81, and then we had that crazy, wild, situation in which we were just oversupplied because people were locked down, and we saw negative rates on oil. But then it continued to go up. So you could have double dipped on this twice. And I think that actually continues to go up from here, just as given the environment that we're in. But in the event of a crash, Fat Man Zoom, I think that ExxonMobil will be a great buy.
I love it. Like I said, Mini Zoom favorite. This is one of the stocks she picked. Went against both of us, and she ended up being right.
Yeah.
But no, I agree. I agree with that. And I think there's a bigger point, which is rather than worry about freaking out about inflation or not, think about both scenarios, and with rising inflation or just fears, think about what you're going to get into. So you have a plan, and I wouldn't worry too much about like trying to predict what happens, but being prepared with whatever plays out. And so that's a great call. I like it.
I mean, think about what happens when, in the event that the economy is in danger or what have you, right?
Yeah.
When the ransomware attack happened on the Colonial Pipeline, people were going crazy, scooping up oil as much as they could. And so oil rates went up as a result. And I think that would be a really good opportunity to scoop up some energy stocks.
The last thing I'll say is that we said this yesterday with Tesla, where we're in the early innings as far as EVs, autonomous driving. We haven't even scratched robo-taxis, which nobody talks about.
Yeah.
We're in the early innings. CrowdStrike, same thing. We're in the early innings as far as cybersecurity is concerned. So while it might feel like these things are doing really well, there is still a long road to go and huge opportunity, huge upside. I love those guys.
Absolutely.
3 very different stocks, a good mix of stocks, not unlike our watch list. We have a free watch list that we send out every morning before the market opens at 9 a.m. Eastern time. If you guys want access to those 5 stocks, we do a fundamental breakdown, a technical breakdown. Click on the link in the description to get your free watch list as well. Boom.